The morning sun cast a golden glow across Kensington Palace as the household staff moved with quiet precision through the grand corridors. Today was not just any day. It was Coronation Day, a moment that would be etched in history forever. Inside the private apartments, Prince William stood before an ornate mirror, adjusting his ceremonial uniform with careful attention to detail. The deep navy fabric, adorned with golden braiding and medals that told stories of service and honor, fit him perfectly. His reflection showed a man who had grown into his role, someone who understood the weight of tradition and the promise of the future. Princess Kate emerged from her dressing room, and William's breath caught for a moment. She wore an exquisite ivory gown that seemed to capture and reflect the morning light. The dress, designed by a renowned British designer, featured delicate embroidery that told the story of the United Kingdom through subtle floral motifs representing England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The pearl and diamond tiara that rested elegantly on her perfectly styled hair had belonged to Queen Mary, connecting her to generations of royal women who had worn it before. Her presence commanded attention not through ostentation, but through an understated elegance that had become her signature. In the children's wing of the palace, 9-year-old Prince George was experiencing a mixture of excitement and nervousness. His younger siblings, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, were buzzing with energy despite the early hour. George understood more than his siblings about the significance of the day. He had been coached extensively on royal protocol, learning when to bow, how to walk, and the importance of maintaining composure even when cameras flashed and crowds cheered. His small uniform mirrored his father's, a symbol of the continuity that defines the monarchy. Princess Charlotte, at 8 years old, possessed a natural confidence that amazed her parents. Her pale blue dress, chosen specifically to complement the family's coordinated color scheme, made her look like a young princess from a fairy tale. Yet beneath the picture-perfect appearance lay a sharp intelligence and strong will that reminded everyone who met her of her great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. She had been practicing her curtsy for weeks, determined to execute it flawlessly when the moment came. 5-year-old Prince Louis presented the greatest unknown factor of the day. His infectious smile and boundless energy had charmed the public since his birth, but royal events required a level of formality that didn't always align with a young child's natural instincts. Kate had wisely prepared several contingency plans, including quiet activities and small treats that might help keep him engaged during the longer ceremonial moments. She knew that sometimes the most authentic moments came from allowing children to be themselves, even in the most formal settings. As the family gathered in the palace's breakfast room, there was an air of anticipation mixed with familial warmth. William reached across the table to squeeze Kate's hand, a gesture that spoke volumes about their partnership. They had navigated royal life together, supporting each other through challenges and celebrations alike. Today represented not just a ceremonial obligation, but a family milestone that would become part of their children's foundational memories. The logistics of preparing a family for such a high-profile event were staggering. Every detail had been planned and rehearsed multiple times. The children's stylists had ensured their clothes fit perfectly and would remain pristine throughout the day's events. Security teams had coordinated with palace staff to ensure smooth transitions between locations. Even the family's breakfast had been carefully planned to provide sustained energy without risking any wardrobe mishaps. Kate moved through the morning with the grace of someone who had learned to balance motherhood with royal duty. She checked on each child individually, offering encouraging words and small adjustments to their appearance. With George, she spoke about the honor of representing their family and country. With Charlotte, she admired her dress and reminded her of the curtsy they had practiced. With Louis, she simply held him close, understanding that her calm presence would help settle his excitement. The palace staff watched the family with professional admiration and personal affection. Many had served the royal household for years, witnessing the children grow from babies into young people who were beginning to understand their unique place in the world. Today they saw not just the formal roles these individuals would play, but the genuine family bonds that strengthened them for the challenges ahead. William took a moment to step onto the private balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The sounds of London awakening to this historic day drifted up to him. The distant hum of traffic, the calls of early rising vendors, and somewhere in the distance, the first crowds gathering along the processional route. He thought about his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and how she would have approached this day with dignity, duty, and love for her people. He felt the weight of following in such footsteps, but also the strength that came from Kate's unwavering support and their children's innocent joy in the moment. The final preparations involved one last family photograph in the palace's white drawing room. As they posed together, each person settling naturally into their position, the photographer captured more than just their formal appearance. The image would show a family united by love and purpose, ready to step into history while remaining grounded in their connections to each other. Kate's hand rested gently on Louis's shoulder, while William stood with quiet confidence, and the children displayed the perfect balance of royal composure and youthful energy that would charm everyone who saw them. The state Bentley pulled up to the private entrance of Kensington Palace with quiet elegance, its deep maroon paint gleaming under the morning sun. The vehicle, specially modified for royal occasions, represented the perfect blend of tradition and modern luxury. Prince William helped Princess Kate into the car first, ensuring her elaborate dress was arranged properly to prevent wrinkles during the journey. The children followed, with George taking his position near the window, understanding instinctively that he might need to wave to well-wishers along the route. As their motorcade began moving through London's streets, the transformation of the city became immediately apparent. Union Jack flags hung from every available surface, creating a patriotic tapestry that stretched as far as the eye could see. Shop windows displayed commemorative displays, and even the most ordinary buildings had been decorated with bunting and royal portraits. The enthusiasm was infectious, and Kate found herself smiling as she observed the preparations that ordinary citizens had made to mark this extraordinary day. Princess Charlotte pressed her nose against the window, marveling at the crowds that were already gathering despite the early hour. People had claimed their viewing spots with folding chairs, blankets, and elaborate picnic setups that suggested they had been planning this moment for months. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, waving small flags with the kind of unbridled enthusiasm that reminded everyone why such ceremonies mattered. The connection between the royal family and the people wasn't just about tradition, it was about shared moments of joy and national pride. The security arrangements were invisible but comprehensive. Motorcycle outriders maintained perfect formation around the royal vehicle, while plainclothes officers had been positioned strategically throughout the route. William and Kate had long since become accustomed to this level of protection, but they made sure their children understood it as care rather than restriction. George had asked thoughtful questions about why so many people wanted to see them, leading to family conversations about service, responsibility, and the unique relationship between the monarchy and the British people. Prince Louis, despite his young age, seemed to understand that something special was happening. His usual boundless energy had been tempered by the formal atmosphere, but his eyes remained bright with curiosity. Kate had wisely brought along his favorite small toy, discreetly tucked into her handbag, knowing that even the best-prepared 5-year-old might need comfort during such an overwhelming experience. The balance between allowing him to be a child while participating in historic moments required constant attention and infinite patience. As they approached central London, the crowds grew thicker and more enthusiastic. The sound of cheering began to filter through the specially reinforced windows of their vehicle. William pointed out landmarks to the children, sharing stories about previous royal occasions and family memories associated with various locations. These informal lessons in royal history helped ground the children in their heritage while making the day feel less daunting and more like a family adventure with deep significance. The route took them past Buckingham Palace, where even more elaborate preparations were visible. The palace facade had been perfectly cleaned, and the ceremonial guards stood at attention in their distinctive red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. Charlotte asked questions about the guards, leading to an impromptu discussion about the various ceremonial roles that made royal occasions possible. These conversations helped the children understand that they were part of something much larger than themselves. Westminster Abbey came into view like a medieval dream brought to life in modern London. The Gothic architecture, with its soaring spires and intricate stonework, had witnessed coronations for nearly 1,000 years. Today it was surrounded by additional security barriers, television crews, and dignitaries from around the world. The sight was both humbling and inspiring, reminding everyone in the car of the weight of history they were about to become part of. Kate took these final moments before arrival to check on each family member. She smoothed George's hair, adjusted Charlotte's dress, and gave Louis an encouraging smile. Her own composure remained perfect, but William could see in her eyes the mixture of excitement and responsibility that he felt himself. They were representing not just the royal family, but the hopes and traditions of an entire nation. The privilege was extraordinary, but so was the pressure to honor it properly. The crowds outside Westminster Abbey were unlike anything the children had ever experienced. Thousands of people lined the streets, many having waited since dawn for this moment. The enthusiasm was palpable, with cheers rising and falling like waves as different members of the royal family arrived. Camera flashes created a constant sparkle in the air, and the children could hear their names being called out by well-wishers who had traveled from across the Commonwealth to witness this historic day. As their car approached the Abbey's entrance, William and Kate exchanged a look that communicated volumes. They had prepared for this moment through years of public service, countless ceremonial events, and careful attention to their roles as future king and queen. Now, with their children beside them, they were ready to step into the next chapter of their story. The Abbey's bells began to ring, their ancient bronze voices adding a soundtrack of tradition to a moment that would be remembered for generations. The vehicle came to a smooth stop, and they could see the red carpet that would lead them into the Abbey. Palace staff stood ready to assist with the intricate logistics of helping a family in formal wear exit gracefully, while maintaining the dignity appropriate to the occasion. Through the windows, they could see other members of the royal family taking their positions, each person understanding their specific role in the choreography of this ancient ceremony, brought into the modern world. The moment the car door opened, the sound hit them like a gentle wave. Thousands of voices raised in celebration, camera shutters clicking in rapid succession, and the magnificent Abbey bells creating a soundtrack of celebration that seemed to make the very air vibrate with excitement. Prince William stepped out first, his military bearing immediately apparent as he straightened to his full height and acknowledged the crowd with a subtle nod. His uniform caught the morning light, the medals and insignia telling the story of his service to crown and country. Princess Kate emerged with the fluid grace that had become her signature, her ivory gown flowing perfectly as she stepped onto the red carpet. The morning breeze caught her dress just slightly, creating a moment of ethereal beauty that photographers captured from every possible angle. Her diamond and pearl tiara caught the sunlight, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the Abbey's ancient stone facade. She paused for just a moment, allowing the crowds to see her fully before turning to help with the children. Prince George stepped out with careful precision, his small face serious as he remembered all the coaching he had received about proper behavior at formal events. At 9 years old, he understood that millions of people around the world would be watching this moment, and the weight of that responsibility showed in his careful movements. He stood tall beside his father, unconsciously mimicking William's posture and bearing. The crowd's reaction to seeing the future king as a young boy was immediate and heartwarming, with cheers rising to a new level of enthusiasm. Princess Charlotte emerged like a ray of sunshine, her confidence apparent in every step. Her pale blue dress complemented the family's coordinated color scheme perfectly, and she moved with a natural poise that suggested she might have been born for such moments. Unlike her older brother, she seemed energized rather than overwhelmed by the attention, offering a small wave to the crowd that generated delighted cheers and countless photographs. Her smile was genuine and infectious, reminding everyone watching why the royal family captures such affection from the public. Prince Louis required a bit more assistance from his mother, his 5-year-old legs needing help navigating the formal car and the elaborate carpet arrangement. Kate's patience and gentle guidance were evident as she helped him find his footing while maintaining her own perfect composure. Louis looked around with wide eyes, taking in the spectacle with the wonder that only a young child can experience. His presence added an element of authentic family life to the formal proceedings, humanizing the royal family in a way that resonated with parents and children worldwide. The walk from the car to the Abbey entrance covered only about 50 feet, but every step was choreographed and meaningful. Palace staff had positioned themselves discreetly to ensure the family's progress would be smooth and dignified. The red carpet, specially laid for the occasion, created a path that guided them toward the ancient wooden doors of the Abbey, where history and tradition waited to embrace them once again. Members of the clergy stood ready to welcome the family, their ceremonial robes adding to the sense of occasion. The Archbishop of Canterbury, who would play a central role in the coronation ceremony, offered a warm but appropriately formal greeting. His presence reminded everyone that this was not just a state occasion, but a religious ceremony with deep, spiritual significance that had been repeated in various forms for over 1,000 years. Other members of the royal family had already taken their positions near the abbey entrance, creating a receiving line that represented the continuity of the monarchy across generations. Each person's presence added to the solemnity of the moment, while also demonstrating the family bonds that strengthen the institution. The children could see their cousins and other relatives, which helped make the overwhelming experience feel more familiar and manageable. The crowds pressed against the security barriers, their enthusiasm contained but clearly visible. People held up phones and cameras trying to capture their own memories of this historic day. Many had traveled from across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, representing the global reach of the monarchy and the affection it inspires. Their cheers created a constant background of support and celebration that seemed to lift the entire family's spirits. Kate took a moment to ensure each child was properly positioned and comfortable before they entered the abbey. Her maternal instincts never wavered, even in the most formal settings. She smoothed Charlotte's dress, straightened Louis's collar, and gave George an encouraging smile that reminded him he was doing perfectly. These small gestures of care and attention showed the world that behind the titles and ceremonies, they remained a loving family supporting each other through extraordinary circumstances. William surveyed the scene with quiet satisfaction, seeing not just the successful execution of complex logistics, but the genuine joy and excitement of the people who had come to witness this moment. He understood that their presence was a privilege that came with enormous responsibility, but also that it represented something beautiful about human nature, the desire to be part of something larger than ourselves, to witness history in the making, and to celebrate traditions that connect us to our past while pointing toward our future. The abbey doors stood open before them, revealing the magnificent interior that had been prepared for this sacred ceremony. The ancient stones seemed to glow with warmth and welcome, while the soaring Gothic architecture created a sense of reaching toward something greater than earthly concerns. Hundreds of distinguished guests from around the world had already taken their seats inside, representing nations, faiths, and institutions that would witness the continuation of a tradition that bridges centuries. As they prepared to cross the threshold into Westminster Abbey, the family stood together for one final moment outside. The photographers captured images that would appear on front pages around the world, but more importantly, they captured a family united by love, duty, and shared purpose, ready to play their part in a ceremony that would become part of the permanent record of British history and their own family story. Stepping across the threshold of Westminster Abbey felt like entering a cathedral of history itself. The ancient stones seemed to whisper stories of the countless coronations, royal weddings, and state funerals that had taken place within these walls over the course of nearly 1,000 years. Prince William felt the weight of that history as he guided his family down the nave, their footsteps joining the echoes of kings and queens who had walked this same path throughout the centuries. The abbey's interior had been transformed for the coronation, with elaborate floral arrangements that seemed to bring the gardens of England indoors. White roses, symbolizing purity and new beginnings, were arranged alongside deep red blooms representing courage and strength. The scent of the flowers mixed with the ancient smell of stone and centuries of prayer, creating an atmosphere that was both earthly and spiritual. Princess Kate noticed how the morning light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the floor that seemed to dance and change as clouds moved across the London sky. The seating arrangements reflected the careful protocol that governed such occasions. Heads of state from around the world had been positioned according to diplomatic precedents and historical relationships with the United Kingdom. Representatives from the Commonwealth nations filled several sections, their presence testament to the global reach of the monarchy and the relationships that had evolved over centuries of shared history. The children could see familiar faces among the guests, family friends, godparents, and distant relatives who had played roles in their lives away from the public eye. Prince George walked with careful attention to his posture and pace, remembering the countless rehearsals that had prepared him for this moment. The Abbey's vastness initially seemed overwhelming, but as they progressed down the aisle, he began to feel a sense of belonging in this sacred space. The Gothic arches soared above him like stone prayers reaching toward heaven, and he could hear the soft murmur of conversation from the assembled guests, a sound that somehow managed to be both intimate and grand at the same time. Princess Charlotte moved with natural confidence, her eyes bright with curiosity as she took in every detail of the magnificent surroundings. The Abbey's architecture fascinated her. The intricate stone carvings that depicted saints and angels, the memorial tablets that marked the resting places of poets and statesmen, and the banners that represented centuries of British military and civic achievement. Her dress rustled softly against the ancient floors, adding her own small sound to the symphony of history being written in real time. Prince Louis held his mother's hand tightly, his 5-year-old mind working to process the grandeur surrounding him. The Abbey was unlike anywhere he had ever been, bigger than any church he had visited, filled with more people than he had ever seen in one place, and humming with an energy that felt both exciting and slightly overwhelming. Kate kept him close, offering quiet words of encouragement, and occasionally pointing out details that might capture his interest and help him feel more comfortable in such an extraordinary environment. The royal family's seating area had been arranged to provide them with perfect views of the ceremony while ensuring they would be visible to both the congregation and the television cameras, broadcasting the event to millions around the world. William and Kate took their positions with practiced ease, their movements coordinated through years of public appearances and ceremonial events. They helped the children settle into their seats, ensuring each was comfortable and had everything they might need during the lengthy ceremony ahead. The assembled congregation represented a remarkable cross-section of British society and the international community. Alongside the political leaders and foreign dignitaries sat representatives from charities, community organizations, and ordinary citizens who had been honored for their service to others. This mixing of different sectors of society reflected the modern monarchy's emphasis on recognizing achievement and service, regardless of social background or traditional hierarchy. The Abbey's choir, renowned throughout the world for their musical excellence, had prepared special arrangements for the coronation that would blend traditional hymns with contemporary compositions. Their voices, trained to fill the vast space of the Abbey without electronic amplification, created a sound that seemed to emanate from the very stones themselves. The children had heard some of these pieces during their preparation for the day, but experiencing them in the Abbey's acoustic environment was entirely different, more powerful, more moving, and more deeply spiritual. Kate used these moments before the ceremony began to observe her children and ensure they remained comfortable and engaged. George sat with remarkable stillness for a 9-year-old, his attention focused on the ceremonial preparations happening around the altar. Charlotte whispered quiet questions about what she was seeing, her curiosity evident but contained within appropriate bounds. Louis occasionally shifted in his seat, but remained remarkably well-behaved considering his age and the formality of the surroundings. The ceremonial objects that would be used in the coronation had been placed on the high altar, their gold and jeweled surfaces catching the light from the Abbey's windows and candles. These artifacts, crowns, scepters, orbs, and other regalia, had been used in coronations for centuries, connecting the present moment to an unbroken chain of tradition stretching back through English and British history. Their presence transformed the Abbey from a beautiful church into the setting for one of the oldest continuous ceremonies in the Western world. William reflected on the significance of being present for this historic moment with his entire family. His children would carry memories of this day throughout their lives, and someday they would tell their own children about witnessing the coronation in Westminster Abbey. The cycle of generations and the continuity of tradition felt particularly meaningful as he sat, surrounded by his family, in a building that had witnessed such moments for nearly a millennium. The atmosphere in the Abbey continued to build as the final preparations were completed. Conversation gradually quieted as the congregation sensed that the formal ceremony was about to begin. The children could feel the anticipation in the air, and Kate gave each of them a reassuring smile that conveyed both her pride in their behavior and her confidence that they would continue to represent their family beautifully throughout the historic proceedings. that were about to unfold. The sound of trumpets filled Westminster Abbey with a golden cascade of notes that seemed to make the very air shimmer with anticipation. The royal fanfare announced the beginning of the coronation ceremony, and every person in the ancient building felt the weight of history settling upon them like a ceremonial cloak. Prince William straightened in his seat, his hand briefly finding Princess Kate's as they prepared to witness a moment that would be remembered for generations. The children sensed the shift in atmosphere, with even young Prince Louis becoming still and attentive as the sacred proceedings began. The Archbishop of Canterbury moved to the center of the abbey with slow, deliberate steps that honored both the solemnity of the occasion and the thousands of years of Christian tradition this ceremony represented. His ceremonial robes, heavy with gold thread and symbolic embroidery, caught the light streaming through the stained glass windows. The ancient words he spoke had been refined over centuries, each phrase carrying the weight of law, faith, and constitutional tradition that formed the foundation of the United Kingdom's system of government. Princess Kate watched with deep attention as the ceremony unfolded, her knowledge of royal protocol allowing her to appreciate the subtle significance of each gesture and ritual. She noticed how the positioning of various officials followed patterns established centuries ago, how the timing of different elements created a rhythm that was both religious service and state occasion. Her children were witnessing something that few people in history had been privileged to see, and she wanted them to understand the honor of their presence even if they couldn't yet grasp all the constitutional implications. The coronation regalia, displayed on the high altar like sacred artifacts from a museum of majesty, gleamed with the accumulated reverence of centuries. Each piece had its own history and symbolic meaning, from the St. Edward's crown that would rest upon the monarch's head to the sovereign's scepter that represented the authority to govern with justice and mercy. Prince George studied these objects with fascination, understanding that someday, in the distant future, he might participate in a similar ceremony in a very different role. The choir's voices soared through the abbey's vaulted spaces, their harmony creating a sound that seemed to lift the entire congregation toward something greater than earthly concerns. The music had been carefully chosen to represent both the United Kingdom's rich choral tradition and the international character of the modern Commonwealth. Princess Charlotte found herself unconsciously swaying slightly to the rhythm, her natural musical sensitivity responding to the extraordinary acoustic environment of the ancient building. Representatives from different faith communities had been invited to participate in various aspects of the ceremony, reflecting the religious diversity of contemporary Britain while maintaining the Christian foundation of the coronation service. This inclusion spoke to the evolving nature of the monarchy and its role in representing all citizens regardless of their personal beliefs. The children observed these different religious leaders with curiosity, their presence adding layers of meaning to an already profound experience. The moment of actual coronation approached with a hush that seemed to silence even the ancient stones of the abbey. The crown, lifted with ceremonial reverence, caught the light in a way that made it seem to glow with its own inner fire. The weight of that crown represented not just gold and precious stones, but the accumulated responsibility of governing a nation and serving as head of the Commonwealth. Every person present understood they were witnessing the transfer of constitutional authority that had sustained British democracy for centuries. Prince Louis, despite his young age, seemed to sense the gravity of what was happening. His usual energy had been replaced by a wide-eyed wonder that suggested he understood this was unlike anything else in his experience. Kate kept a gentle hand near him, ready to provide comfort or guidance if needed, but marveling at how well all three children were managing such an overwhelming and unprecedented experience. Their behavior reflected not just good parenting and preparation, but also an innate understanding of their roles in this historic moment. The prayers spoken during the ceremony connected the present moment to centuries of similar services, creating a bridge between past and future that made time feel both eternal and immediate. William found himself thinking about his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, and how she had participated in her own coronation decades earlier as a young woman carrying the hopes and expectations of a nation recovering from war. The continuity of the institution felt particularly meaningful as he sat with his own children, representing the next generation of royal service. Dignitaries from around the world watched with the reverence due to a ceremony that predated most of their own nations. yet continued to influence international relations and Commonwealth connections. The presence of so many world leaders demonstrated the global significance of the British monarchy, not just as a national institution, but as a symbol of stability and tradition in an increasingly complex world. Their attendance honored both history and ongoing diplomatic relationships that would shape future cooperation and understanding. The Abbey's architecture seemed designed specifically for such moments, with its soaring Gothic lines drawing the eye upward, while its vast spaces allowed for the gathering of thousands of witnesses to history. The building itself had been consecrated for such purposes, its stones blessed and its spaces sanctified through centuries of royal ceremonies. The children could feel the sacred atmosphere even if they couldn't articulate it, their behavior reflecting an intuitive understanding of the holiness of the moment. As the ceremony reached its culmination, the silence in the Abbey became profound and complete. Even the youngest guests seemed to understand that they were witnessing something that transcended ordinary experience, a moment when temporal authority met spiritual blessing in a tradition that had survived wars, social upheavals, and the changing nature of modern democracy. The crown settled upon the monarch's head with a finality that seemed to echo through time itself, connecting this moment to every coronation that had preceded it and every one that would follow in the future. The first words, spoken after the coronation, created a release of joy and celebration that swept through the Abbey like a wave breaking against ancient shores. The congregation's response reflected not just relief at the successful completion of a complex ceremony, but genuine happiness at witnessing the continuation of traditions that provided stability and continuity in an uncertain world. The Abbey bells began their triumphant peal as the coronation ceremony reached its magnificent conclusion, their bronze voices joining in a celebration that could be heard across London and seemed to announce to the world that history had been made once again. Prince William rose from his seat with quiet dignity, helping Princess Kate gather their children as the formal recessional began. The family moved with practiced grace, their coordination reflecting both careful preparation and natural ease with ceremonial occasions. Prince George walked beside his father with newfound confidence, understanding that he had just witnessed something that would shape his understanding of duty and service for the rest of his life. The procession out of Westminster Abbey moved at a stately pace that allowed every person present to savor the historic moment they had just shared. Princess Kate guided Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis with gentle touches and encouraging smiles, ensuring they maintained their composure while allowing them to experience the joy and celebration surrounding them. The children's faces reflected wonder and excitement, their earlier nervousness replaced by a sense of accomplishment and pride at having participated so beautifully in such an important family and national milestone. As they emerged from the Abbey into the bright London sunshine, the sound that greeted them was unlike anything the children had ever experienced. Thousands upon thousands of voices rose in celebration, creating a wall of sound that seemed to lift the spirits of everyone who heard it. The crowds had been waiting for hours to catch this glimpse of the royal family, and their enthusiasm was infectious and overwhelming. Camera flashes created a constant sparkle in the air, while Union Jack flags waved like colorful birds taking flight across the sea of people. The Gold State coach waited in magnificent splendor, its elaborate golden decorations and crystal glass panels gleaming in the afternoon sun. This extraordinary vehicle, used only for the most important state occasions, represented the perfect marriage of traditional craftsmanship and royal pageantry. Prince Louis looked up at it with wide eyes, clearly amazed by its size and ornate beauty. Kate helped him understand that they would ride in this special coach back to Buckingham Palace, making the experience feel like stepping into a fairy tale brought to life. The journey back through London streets became a celebration that seemed to involve the entire city. Every window was filled with waving figures, every balcony decorated with flags and banners, every street corner occupied by families who had come out to be part of this historic day. The children pressed their faces to the coach windows, waving back at the crowds with genuine delight and growing confidence. Their natural warmth and enthusiasm endeared them to everyone who saw them, creating moments of authentic connection that made the formal occasion feel deeply human and accessible. Princess Charlotte particularly seemed to come alive during the procession, her natural charisma evident as she waved and smiled at the crowds. Her confidence inspired her younger brother, who began copying her gestures and clearly enjoying the positive response from the people lining the streets. Prince George maintained his more serious demeanor but occasionally broke into smiles that revealed his enjoyment of the celebration and his growing comfort with his public role. The route back to Buckingham Palace had been planned to showcase London at its finest, passing landmarks that told the story of British history and culture. William pointed out significant buildings and monuments to his children, sharing stories and historical context that helped them understand their place in the continuing narrative of their country and their family. These impromptu lessons created precious family moments within the grand spectacle of the public celebration. The crowds grew even larger as they approached Buckingham Palace, with tens of thousands of people filling the mall and surrounding areas. The sight was breathtaking, a sea of red, white, and blue that stretched as far as the eye could see, punctuated by the green of the trees and the architectural grandeur of the palace itself. Kate marveled at the organization and good humor of the crowds, noting how families had made elaborate picnics of the occasion and how children sat on shoulders to get better views of the royal family. The palace gates opened to welcome them home, and the coach passed through into the courtyard, where palace staff waited to assist with their arrival. The children had performed beautifully throughout the entire day, exceeding even their parents' expectations for composure and engagement. As they stepped down from the coach, Kate took a moment to acknowledge each child's contribution to the day's success, her pride evident in her warm embraces and whispered words of praise. The famous palace balcony awaited them, where they would make their appearance before the crowds gathered in front of Buckingham Palace. This moment represented the culmination of the day's celebrations, the final public appearance that would provide the iconic images of the coronation that would be remembered forever. William and Kate prepared their children for this last ceremonial obligation, ensuring they understood the significance while keeping the atmosphere light and celebratory. As they stepped onto the balcony, the roar from the crowd below was deafening and exhilarating. The sight that greeted them was extraordinary. Hundreds of thousands of people stretching down the mall and into St. James's Park, all united in celebration and appreciation for the royal family and the traditions they represented. The children waved with genuine enthusiasm, their earlier nervousness completely forgotten in the joy of the moment. The RAF flypast appeared overhead right on schedule, the precision formation of aircraft trailing red, white, and blue smoke across the London sky. Prince Louis pointed excitedly at the planes, his delight infectious and perfectly captured by the photographers below. Princess Charlotte maintained her elegant wave while clearly enjoying the spectacle, and Prince George stood with increasing confidence beside his parents, understanding that this moment would become part of his family's permanent record. As the day's formal obligations came to an end, the family shared quiet smiles of satisfaction and relief. They had successfully navigated one of the most important ceremonial occasions of their lives, representing their family and their country with dignity, grace, and authentic warmth. The children had exceeded all expectations, proving themselves capable of rising to extraordinary occasions while maintaining their natural charm and personality. The memories created on this coronation day would last forever, becoming part of the family's story and the nation's history. As they waved their final farewells to the crowds and stepped back into the private quarters of Buckingham Palace, they carried with them the satisfaction of duty fulfilled and the joy of having shared such a meaningful experience together. The coronation had been not just a state occasion, but a profound family milestone that strengthened their bonds and prepared them for the many ceremonial moments that lay ahead in their unique and privileged lives of service.